Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 25 of Life Lean In. And man, I gotta tell you that this past year, 2020, and really coming into 2021, has been like something that most of us have never experienced before. Man, we've gone through trials and tribulations and all sorts of stressors, but man, this year had stressor upon stressor upon stressor. We got this global pandemic where everyone in the world's life got turned upside down. Man, mental health crisis is on the rise. Anxiety, depression is skyrocketing right now. Suicides because of lockdowns and changing and all these things, not losing jobs. So much is happening. And then of course we've got all this built up racial tension that's exploding onto the streets, and we're seeing rioting, and we're seeing all sorts of crazy things in the news with cops killing black people and all sorts of things. Man, we got even the pandemic itself is causing all sorts of grief and chaos. Should we wear masks? Should we not wear masks? Should we get vaccinated? Should we not get vaccinated? What's the origin? Where did this pandemic come from? And we got people say, man, it came from China. And so now people are being racist towards Chinese people. I mean, come on. Like, we have so many issues that we're dealing right now. And then, of course, we had probably one of the most divisive elections, presidential elections, that I've seen in my lifetime. And I might not even see one as divisive as this one has been in my lifetime. And here's what I know. Again, suicide, mental health crises is on the rise. Anxiety, depression is on the rise. It's going to catastrophic levels. And so this past week, I got to be a part of a conference and heard some great information that really said that, mental health issues is not always, listen to me, it's not always what is in our DNA. It's not always passed on from person to person. Yeah, for some people, man, anxiety and depression and some of those mental health issues, man, it can be clinical. It absolutely can be, but it's not always the case. And so I'm going to give you some things today to think about when it comes to your mental health. And I believe that there are some things that you can do to potentially change the way you're mentally viewing the world. And it is challenging during this season. And so here's a few tips to help you. Number one is think about, what do you do to medicate, to self-medicate, to maybe mask your pain, or maybe, man, you had the worst day, and man, what do you do to come off of that terrible day? Man, for some people, they'll self-medicate with maybe drinking a lot. Maybe they'll go overboard. They'll get so drunk they don't even remember the day that happened, but they wake up the next day and it's maybe the beginning of another terrible day because they're hungover and, man, I got to go back to work, and what's going to happen? For some people, it could be an addiction to drugs. For others like me, honestly, mine is food. Man, I will just eat and eat and eat. Man, the other day, no joke, I came home and I was stressed out and tired, and I came home and I just dominated a bag of Cheetos. Dominated. I couldn't stop. My fingers were totally orange because of these Cheetos. Like it's no mistake that I used to my average weight was around 200, 210. That's probably a healthy weight for me. Now I'm at 240. Like this year, I'm telling you, the stressors of 2020 and 2021, the changing and all the things that have happened in the pandemic and leading through it and dealing with certain crises, man, my stress level has gone through the roof. And how have I self-medicated? I've medicated through eating a ton. And not to mention, gyms were shut down and people are getting physically unfit at alarming rates. So what is it that you do to self-medicate? And think about this for a second. What can you do to change that? Like you actually have an opportunity to potentially change that behavior, change that lifestyle of how you self-medicate. Now, it's different for different people, right? Because not all of us do the same thing. Like not all of us binge drink, or not all of us binge eat, or not all of us, some of us are workoutaholics. Like we'll just destroy ourselves. And that might be a healthy format. Maybe you get on the bike and you go out or maybe you run so many miles. But what is it that you can do to shift your lifestyle to help you, to pull you out of that stressor, to pull you out of that funk? Because again, not everything is clinical. Sometimes it is. And I believe in getting help if you need it. If you need some help mentally, that it could be clinical. I myself, I take some medication for this, for my anxiety. And I've dealt with depression before. So I'm not speaking to you as someone who doesn't understand this dynamic. I believe that that's helpful, but I also know that there are things that can feed that within my life. And here's the one I want to really talk about today is here's the deal, selective ignorance. Like we live in a timeline, in a time right now where you have access to so much information. At your fingertips, you've got all sorts of news apps, and you've got Instagram and Twitter, and you've got Facebook, and you've got people's opinions all over the place right at your fingertips. And recently I heard this phrase, and honestly, it was kind of an affirmation for me, because this phrase selective ignorance is something that I began practicing about a year ago, maybe 6 months ago. And that is that, what is it that you're going to choose to not like overdo, to not overconsume the information? And I want to share with you some of the ways in which I made a choice to become selectively ignorant. And can I tell you, when I became selectively ignorant in these ways, my joy, my stress level, my heart rate, my anxiety, man, it changed for the better in ways I cannot even describe to you. So listen, I used to be a news junkie. I used to wake up every morning and I would watch the news for 2 hours. I'd come home at night and I'd watch the news for at least an hour. And I'd have 3 hours probably of the news every single day. And honestly, I'd get on the apps, I'd get on the news apps, and I'd check the news apps, and I'd see all that kind of stuff. And here's the deal. I became selectively ignorant. I decided, man, I'm going to turn off the news. I'm not going to watch it anymore. I'm not going to get on those online apps. I'm not going to check the news all the time. And for some of you might think, well, isn't it important to know what's going on in the world? I can still hear about stuff that's going on and still get some of that, but I don't need all the commentary. Man, when I watch the news, I don't know if you're like me, but no matter what news station you watch, man, there's so much opinions attached to the news we're getting. Sure, there might be a little bit of fact, but there's that guy's opinion and that girl's opinion, and there's that political side's opinion and this political side's opinion, and man, President Trump and President Biden, and they're all divided, and man, your heart rate can elevate to levels in a short amount of time watching the news in ways that you can't even comprehend. Let's talk about Facebook or social media, Instagram, Twitter. Man, you could read something and then begin reading the comments of stuff. Oh my goodness. You talk about raising the level of anxiety and depression in your life. And so I made a decision six months ago to a year ago that I'm not on Facebook anymore. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on those things. I don't interact with it. And some of you are thinking, you're probably watching right now and you're thinking, man, Dan, I see you on Facebook. You have a Facebook. Yeah, but I actually have other people run it, because we have benefit to being on those platforms. Like I'm a leader. I'm a spiritual leader. And so we'll share scriptures with people, and we'll put stuff on there that we're praying for people. And honestly, at those times, I do have people that share that information with me so that I can engage. But I'm not following everyone's opinions. I'm not going to follow everyone's divisiveness and everyone's baggage. Man, I promise you, if you turn some of that stuff off, if you become selectively ignorant of these things, man, your joy factor will rise. I promise you. Man, if you're struggling with anxiety or depression during this season, some of it for you may be clinical. Again, get a doctor's help. Find help in the way that you need it. But for some of you, just like you self-medicate and do things that you can change in your lifestyle to maybe do it differently, maybe medicate in a more healthy way by working out or getting exercise. For some of you, maybe you need to turn off the news. You can find stuff out in different places. You can just read the headlines, but don't dive into everybody's opinion because it'll be so frustrating and it will rob you of joy. And joy, man, if you lose joy, man, things that you even enjoyed doing before can become like less and less enjoyable. Things will become darker. You'll find yourself, man, your heart rate is rising. You're panicking and you're stressing out. So turn off some of those things. Become selectively ignorant. It doesn't mean you're going to ignore the stuff that's going on in the world. I still understand some of the stuff that's going on in the world, but I don't need to hear everyone's opinion about it. I can formulate my opinion of myself. And I promise you, when you do these things, it'll help. So why not try it? Let me know what you think in the comments. Man, I'd love to hear if you've tried turning off the news or maybe watching less of it. Maybe you've shut off Facebook or Twitter. Man, do it for a week. Man, just take 1 week and tell me at the end of this week if it hasn't helped you to become more joyful, to become less anxious, maybe even less depressed. I hope this is helpful. If you know someone that can benefit from this, I would love for you to share it with them. Comment. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know your own experience in this realm. But here's the deal. Hit the subscribe button wherever you digest this podcast. And don't forget, nobody's perfect. We're all in process. We're trying to do this life together and to keep learning, keep growing, and keep leaning in.